Hello everybody, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. It's time for a new series. Another one! Yes!
You're joking. Not another one?
Subscribe. In this series, we'll be taking a look at the summer transfer window, but more importantly, it's going to be focused on clubs and how they will rebuild, refurbish, and renew hope in you, fans of your clubs. So as we go on, if you've enjoyed this one and you like this idea, then let me know by hitting the like button. As I said, subscribe and get involved in the comments down below and tell me which team we need to do next. There will be categories that we will look at through this so that we're getting somewhere. Money available, it's crucial, okay? If you haven't got money, you can't buy players. Insight. Secondly, we'll look at some of the early transfer links for these teams at the time of recording. Of course, it's a very moving paced thing. We'll talk about the weaknesses, the areas that need to be strengthened, and then we'll put forward some recruits for the rebuild that will refurbish and renew you guys. Okay, let's dive into this, kicking off with Arsenal. Now, this is a huge summer for Arsenal. So how do Arsenal close the gap on Spurs? Slipping up and handing fourth place to Spurs will no doubt hurt Arsenal, and it's one that could hurt them long term. Time will tell, which makes this summer even more important. But overall, I think the performance arc of Arteta and this Arsenal side has been going in a positive direction, and if they can make the right moves and allow the rest of the team to step up another level, who knows what could happen this season for them, but it is a huge summer for them. In terms of money available, it's not been made public how much money Arsenal have. If they have told you, let me know. If you're in the know, let me know in the comments down below. But I think it looks like it's going to be around £100 million to spend, which, you know, off the back of last summer, shows that Arsenal still have a bit of pulling power in terms of the finances, the Yankee. But it will hinge on some of the transfer fees that they're able to bring in. The great thing about that is that they do have some sellable assets. The likes of Guendouzi, Leno, Saliba are all players that could be easy to move on, and you'd be able to receive large fees for them, which would give Arsenal that spending power to compete with some of the players that they're after. Right, let's have a look at the early transfer links for Arsenal, incomings and outgoings. Starting off with the incomings. Victor Osimhen. The Nigerian is Napoli's record signing and is the most expensive African of all time, so wouldn't come cheap. However, he would be an excellent signing, offering pace in behind and potency in the box. Doesn't seem realistic though. Gabriel Jesus. Arsenal seemingly linked with every striker under the sun, but this move could be realistic. Serge Gnabry. It's rumoured that Gnabry wants to leave Bayern in pursuit of playing as a central striker, a position Arsenal are light in. Gianluca Scamacca. There's actually a video on the channel, one transfer for every Premier League team. Go click on that video after this because we put forward Gianluca Scamacca, and now all of a sudden he's actually being linked with the club. And of course, Youri Tielemans. Arsenal also seem to be after a centre midfielder, which is why they've been linked with the Belgian this summer. In terms of outgoings, you've got Ainsley Maitland-Niles. AMS seems very keen to play week in, week out, and looks like he's willing to move for guaranteed game time. William Saliba. Saliba is fresh off the back of a brilliant season in which he was crowned Ligue 1 Player of the Year, so for him to be on the way out seems baffling. He might stay, but it looks unsure what Arsenal's plans for him are. Matteo Guendouzi, remember him? Looks like a permanent switch to Marseille will happen for the Frenchman. And Hector Bellerin, of course. Had a decent season with Real Betis, winning the Copa del Rey. However, his loan having ended, it's anyone's guess where he'll be playing next season. But it looks unlikely that it will be Arsenal. Right, let's talk weaknesses. In terms of weaknesses, the primary problem, I think, for Arsenal that's gone under the radar this season is actually the left-back position. Now, since joining the club, Tierney has been a great player for them when he's fit. However, he seems to continually have these injury woes, and it's meant that he hasn't ever truly had a full season for them. When he's playing, when he's firing, Arsenal look like a really exciting team. But the stand-in Nuno Tavares, it seems like his defensive game in particular is not up to scratch when he has to deputise for Tierney. Tierney had a tackle success rate of 75% versus dribblers last season. However, Tavares, it is only 50% success rate. So if Tierney wasn't so injury prone, there wouldn't be an issue here, but there is. And in terms of playing 90s this season, he's only played 21 90s last season. And Tavares, not defensively solid enough, so it's a concern in my opinion. Another weakness for Arsenal is a lack of depth in midfield in terms of progressing the ball forward defensively, especially once Partey is out. And again, it's another one of those players who seems to struggle with injuries at different times. His average tackles and interceptions per 90 is 3.91 last season, whilst El Nene 3.89 and Lokonga 3.57. So they've got similar levels when it comes to defensive output. The problem is, when Partey plays, yes, you get that output, but you also get someone who progresses the ball much better than other players in that squad. So that is another area where they need to find some depth. And finally, a stat that will be heavily on Arteta's mind going into a season where you're trying to get yourself Champions League football and you've got the Europa League on the horizon. Arsenal's 3 strikers last season only mustered 13 goals between them. None of them particularly shone, apart from Nketiah in a 5-game spell near the end of the season. And to make things worse, 2 of those 3 strikers have departed. At the time of recording, Nketiah hasn't signed his new deal. Looks like he will do. Lacazette scored 4 goals this season from an XG of 7.6, so not really hitting the heights that you'd like. Aubameyang also underperformed his XG under Arteta, and of course there's problems there, and he's now left the club. And Nketiah broke even with his XG. So overall, this is something actually that we maybe need to keep an eye on someone like Arteta. Is Arteta getting the best out of his strikers? Because someone like Jose Mourinho, wherever he goes, his striker sort of explodes into life. So something to keep an eye on when it comes to Arteta and his ability to coach. So areas to recruit. First of all, I think there needs to be left-back cover. This can happen in 2 different ways. Could it be someone that can push Tierney in terms of competing for a starting spot, or someone that you can just feel is consistent? And actually, it might be someone that's on his way to better things, because inevitably Tierney is going to get injured once again. In midfield, there's 2 ways of looking at the midfield area. You could go and get yourself an understudy for Thomas Partey, but you want someone who can kind of do both so that you can strengthen the depth and have someone for Europa League and save Thomas Partey for the Premier League season, because that is a big part of Arsenal's season next year. They didn't have European football this season. So next season, they're going to have to be ready for that. And at the moment, they feel very light, and it's what cost them the Champions League in the first place. The second way of doing the midfield is that you have someone to work alongside Thomas Partey, someone who can be that deep-lying playmaker to allow them to progress the ball, so that if one of your other midfielders is someone who's just that defensive destroyer, let's say, you've still got that quality in midfield in terms of progressing the ball. And then finally, of course, they need a striker. They went for Vlahovic in the winter. That failed, but they need to get someone who can play up front, be an advanced forward for Arteta, but also be able to link him with the team as well, because at the moment it's going to be Nketiah who's got to play 50 odd games if they do well in the Europa League on his own, or you've got to find a way to create a false 9 system. So they need a really nice mix of depth and quality. Right then, 2 options per position here. Let's start off with the left back. Let's start off with David Raum, who is a quality left back here, and fits what Arsenal do, because when you think of Arsenal, you think of Tomiyasu sort of tucking in that elbow back 4 that we spoke about on the channel. There's a video on that. If you want to go and check it, just search Allcott elbow. Hope there's nothing else comes up.
Bombs away. Good night.
David Raum had a really good season for Hoffenheim. Really exciting player, a great attacking verve. Scored 3 goals, assisted 11 and created 19 big chances for Hoffenheim last season. It would give competition to Tierney. It would also allow Tierney to maybe play as a left-sided centre-back like he does for Scotland, if that's something you want to use to give options to this Arsenal team. I think this is the thing with these teams that want to be in the top 6, in the top 4, play European football, and it not to affect them in the Premier League. You need to have depth and you need to have options. If Arsenal don't get Raum this summer, they will never get him. This guy is destined to go to one of the top clubs, but the strategy when it comes to Arsenal, as I've spoken about previously, has to be those players that are slightly... David Raum's not really one of those, but slightly going under the radar. Probably would cost 30 to 40 million, but if you don't get him soon, he's going to go to a Man City or Real Madrid. There will be competition for David Raum, so another option, a cheaper alternative, Borna Sosa, plays for Stuttgart, can play as a left wing back, can play as a left back as well in that elbow back 4 that we were talking about. He's had a great season for Stuttgart last season, 24 as well. I think the age is important here, and what he will give you is that flexibility of someone who can kind of be an understudy, but is competent enough that if and when Tierney gets his injuries, you've got someone who's ready to replace him, and it doesn't affect the style too much or the output of the team. Last season, the Croatian had a really cracking season in terms of attacking output, a deserved 8 assists, but created 103 shot-creating actions in the Bundesliga last season. Would be a cracking option and would be that little bit cheaper. Moving into midfield, we were talking about, do you want someone who can be that deep-lying playmaker who can dictate the pace of a game, or do you want someone who's going to be that understudy to Thomas Partey who can, progress the ball but also be a ball winner in transitions? Tien Koopmeiners is both of those. Atalanta midfielder, 24 years old. The Dutchman has that technical ability to provide the sort of Tielemans role, which I know Arsenal are looking for Tielemans, and if they go and get him, great. But this might be a cheaper option, but he's got a good understanding of getting on the ball or where to be on the football pitch, be able to recycle possession and leverage attacks as well. He's played Champions League football. He is not a superstar, but he's on the road to doing that. He's certainly established. Would be a really clever signing in my opinion. I like the idea of having that sort of Dutch style central midfielder in that Arsenal midfield. I kind of think that fits with what Arteta's trying to do a little bit. It would cost around 30 million, but I think he'd be a cracking option, and he offers the ability to play both roles of being that, that number 8, but also maybe being that number 6 or that destroyer as well. I could chuck Youri Tielemans at you again, but I've told you about him in terms of the early links for Arsenal, and if that happens, so be it. And I think it's a great option in terms of how much he would cost, because he's got a year left on his contract. He's probably going to be a touch cheaper than he normally would be, but would still cost a decent amount. So another option, maybe a little bit pricey, but he's Premier League proven. I think he's a Champions League player. He's just not playing for a Champions League team right now, and has incredible experience for his age. Ruben Neves. We spoke about him in another video on the channel where we're talking about players that need to leave each Premier League club. And for Wolves, I think it is the time to do it. You cash him when he's got 2 years left on his contract. Could be 40 million. But for Arsenal, it would feel like safe money. Do you know what I mean? A player that is Premier League proven, can also work in that double pivot, has done that brilliantly for Wolves with Moutinho, and just has that quality on that ball as well. Also, great set pieces you could be provided by Ruben Neves as well. It's one that I'm intrigued to see if Ruben Neves will be looking at a team that is in the Champions League, in the Premier League, to move to next. But if not, I think this could really close the gap significantly to Spurs. Arsenal, of course, have already signed the new Fabio Vieira from Porto, 40 million euros. What's interesting about this is that I think it's more about depth with him, because he's a classic number 10. He can play on the left or on the right, up the top, but he's an attacking player, an attacking midfielder, which isn't, in my opinion, really what Arsenal need right now. And then strikers. Now, with the strikers, we're going to put forward 2 players that I haven't seen been linked with Arsenal yet. Arsenal have been linked with a lot of strikers, as we've spoken about. But players that haven't been linked, but are still realistic and have a similar profile to what they're after. Let's start off with Alexander Isak. Despite not having one of the best seasons in front of goal this year, he still, in my books, is a really, really exciting player. And actually, that could be something that Arsenal could capitalise on in order to get the price down maybe a little bit on a guy whose contract runs till 2026. So it's going to cost upwards of 40 million to get him. The thing is, I think he could flourish at Arsenal. In that environment, being sort of the main man there, but also being in a young, youthful squad, he's got everything Arteta kind of wants. That physicality and size, the ability to be an advanced forward and run in behind, which I think Arteta wants to see as well, especially with the players that are going to be playing in front of him, so that the likes of Odegaard, Smith Rowe can play and thread through those passes, but also someone who could provide the technical ability to hold up the ball and be a bit of a backboard for those same players to thrive off as they work their way up the pitch. And the second option, I'm really surprised that no one's really gone for this guy as of yet. And I think it has to happen sooner or later. I have said on this channel, I think he's good enough to play for England. And I think he offers something different that very few England strikers have, maybe Tammy Abraham. Ivan Toney. I'm amazed that he's not been linked with more clubs. And I think he would be perfect for Arsenal, in my eyes, to offer something different. If you still want to give Nketiah more game time, I think you can, alternate a little bit depending on the opposition. But he's a guy who can offer so much physicality, guaranteed penalty taker that scores every time he takes a penalty, link up players strong as well. You've seen that in terms of his connection with Christian Eriksen as well. I think he would cost 35 million, then you'd have some add-ons on top of that. But he's got a great mentality as well, and has come into the Premier League and scored a hell of a lot of goals for a team that didn't create that much for him. So I think he'd be a really, really good option for Arsenal, and one that they're kind of not keeping an eye on properly at the moment. Maybe it's one where they've actually had a quiet word and Brentford has said it's this amount of money and it's too much. But I think Ivan Toney would be fantastic for Arsenal. So there you have it. We've highlighted the strengths, the weaknesses, and the players that could help rebuild Arsenal and take them to the next level to get them into the Champions League spots. What do you think about the players that we put forward, and where do you think Arsenal could strengthen that we haven't spoken about? Get involved in the comments, and if you see someone else make a good comment and you're interested, go and have a chat with them. That is what I want the comment section to be all about. Not just me reading your comments, but you guys reading each other's and creating essentially a forum underneath each video. So get involved. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.